Oh, yeah, water.
Yeah, guess what? Thanks for reminding me. I forgot it again.
There's Diet Coke out there.
Where?
There's a little
Just right
fridge out
A
there.
little fridge out there. You go grab one?
You know what? I'm going to grab one of those
Okay,
and
go
go
ahead.
use the restroom.
I just hit record. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of When Records Ruled, the podcast where we share our love of rock music and pop culture from the 70s and 80s and take a few B-side tracks down memory lane. So grab those liner notes and throw on that members only jacket. Hopefully it still fits, because it's time to hit the play button. I'm your host, David Norris, and joining me on this flashback musical road trip are my good friends Brian Strom and Lance Schwartz. How are you guys doing?
I'm ready to go.
Really good. You know, I kind of forgot what the name of our podcast was, so thanks for the reminder there, Dave.
And you're wearing a T-shirt, too, that says it.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, merch. We probably need merch at some point, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So for our first 3 episodes, we're going to be talking about our first album, which we each owned. So today's episode, we're going to be taking a look back at Brian's first album, which is Freeze Frame by the Geils Band. We'll also see what was happening around the time of that album's release, wrap it up with a personal rating of the album, and then we'll end the show with our Remember When segment. So to get us started, Lance is going to introduce the album and give us some facts we should know before our discussion.
Freeze Frame, okay? 10th studio album. Is that crazy? 10th studio album? Because I'm not sure any of you heard of Jay Geils before Freeze Frame came out.
I know I didn't.
Yeah,
I did, but
I actually did
just
too,
because of Love Stinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
but-
Sorry, Dave. You're the only one that did
Yeah,
that.
I kind of a loser.
That's
that
all
way.
right.
But
You're
yeah.
in the- you're in the same boat as a lot of people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for making me feel better.
And you're the youngest one here, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am actually.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. By
So-
6 months or so. Something like that.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So Jay Geils released Freeze Frame on October 26th, 1981. It was on the EMI label, and it reached number 1 in the U.S. Billboard 200 album chart in February of 82. Remained there for 4 weeks, a little different than that Boston album last week. Featured the hit singles Centerfold, number 1 U.S., number 3 U.K., and Freeze Frame, number 4 U.S., easier for me to say. And Angel in Blue also reached the U.S. top 40, but I actually don't have a number. It wasn't a top 10.
It reached 40
40.
for 2 weeks.
Well,
Wow.
So it went on 40, and that was it.
that's what Casey Kasem says.
Yep.
So there's your facts. That's all I got.
All right. To help us get in the right frame of mind then, Brian has some information on what was happening around that time the album was released.
All right. Top bands of the time: Hall & Oates, The Police, Foreigner, Journey, Genesis, and The Cars.
All dynamite.
I know. This is like right in my wheelhouse.
Yes,
that is-
exactly.
Good stuff.
Good
Yes.
stuff. All right, the top 3 songs on the week of October 26th was number 3, Theme from the Greatest American Hero, Believe It or Not, by, does anybody know?
Oh, man. I don't.
Joey Scarborough or something. Barry?
Scarberry, yeah.
Something like
you got
that.
it. Number 2, Slow Hand.
Eric Clapton.
No, that's his nickname.
Pointer Sisters.
The Pointer Sisters, nice.
He's got an album called Slow Hand. Never
Yeah,
mind.
well, that was kind of his
Nickname, Slow
nickname.
Hand.
Yeah.
You guys should kick me off this
We should. That was
podcast. That was a really
You're too old.
bad
You're
faux-
too old for this.
bad
Just
faux
wait,
pas.
for the feedback, man.
All right, number 1, Endless Love by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie.
Yes.
Wow. Good song.
TV shows, Dallas, The Jeffersons,
Yes.
they were moving on up, Three's Company,
Yes.
and The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes.
Those are some great shows.
Man.
You guys remember the car horns that did the Dallas theme song? I had a neighbor that had one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That was the thing? I thought you were going to say Dukes of Hazzard.
I know, I was
because
just-
I'm like, yeah.
Oh, you could do that. It probably,
Yeah.
had stored
Programmable
like
ones.
10.
Yeah.
You could put 10 in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, top movies: Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Yeah.
Superman 2, and 9 to 5.
Dolly Parton.
Yeah. And then some of the top toys: Star Wars action figures. That probably went on for a number of years.
Yeah. That was just after the first one, I think. Well, actually.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
every movie, but then they were just huge. So
Yeah. Just nonstop.
Didn't matter,
Till today.
the Jaws game.
What?
Does anyone remember that? It was
No.
a plastic Jaws, and his jaws were wide open.
Yeah.
And inside it were plastic things that a shark might eat, and you had to fish them out.
Kind of like Operation.
Kind of. And then there would be one, and at some point, his jaws would snap shut. And
I
then-
vaguely
then you
remember
lost.
that.
And you would jump
When
out of
did
your
Jaws
side.
first come out?
76, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So staying power there.
So
for Jaws.
could have been, Jaws 2. When did Jaws 2 come out? Maybe it was around that time. I
Yeah.
don't know. And then, let's see. My Pretty Pony. And then this one.
I thought that would have been later, actually.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was a
I
reincarnation.
think that was Polly Pockets.
And then the last one, which we all had, the Rubik's Cube,
Yes. Yes.
that I never mastered ever.
That actually segues really nicely into this album
Ooh.
when we get to that.
Okay.
I feel like Dave might have mastered the Rubik's Cube.
I can talk about that. It's frustrating.
My son can
So
do
no.
it. He does them pretty quick, but yeah, I never did. I was the one who popped them apart and then put them back together.
You always hope your offspring are smarter than you anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yep.
Yep. So that's all I got.
All right, gents, let's dive into the Geils Band album, Freeze Frame. Brian, I want to know how you came about this album, the story of when you bought it when you were a youngster.
Okay. I'm going to start just a hair before I bought it.
Oh.
I first played Little League, and we used to have to sell candy bars door to door
Yes.
to raise money.
I remember that.
And if you sold X amount of candy bars, we got a free AM transistor radio. And so that was when I started listening to music. And AM, you're listening to top 40 stuff, basically. Then I got a paper out. Now I had a little more cash, and now it's time to buy a stereo, full stereo, speakers. So I got one, record player, tape player, all that in there. Well, now you got to buy a record. So my first, actually bought the single 45 of the Geils Band Centerfold. So that was my first actual record that I bought for it. Then the flip side was Rage in the Cage, which I thought was a pretty cool song. So I'm thinking, I think I might have to get the whole album. So, like Lance, hopped on my bike, rode to the record store, which was a pretty big record store. It was called Big Ben's Records. Used to be a grocery store. So just to give you a sense of the size, and it actually had, it was on the corner of, it was on the end of a strip mall, and it actually had on the corner, like Big Ben clocks.
Oh, cool.
Up there. At least two sides had them. I don't think you can see them from the back side, but, so that was where I bought it.
By the way, Big Ben sounds like it could be just a grocery store too.
Yeah.
Like they just
could.
went, oh, let's keep the name and make it a record
Yeah,
store.
I tried to find a little information on Big Ben's. I know there was some down in Southern California, so maybe it was just a California thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how widespread they were. And then a few years later, they turned into the Warehouse Records and
Okay.
tapes.
Yeah. We had a few record stores that were grocery store size like that in the Twin Cities. The one I recall in Bloomington was called Great American Music,
Okay.
a place where they, at Kiss, I remember, Kiss came and did an in-store.
Oh, cool.
They also sold concert tickets. I remember sitting
Yeah.
in line there,
All the record stores did.
Yep.
getting in line at like 3 a.m. for, I think it was John Mellencamp. We did.
That's the only place you could get them at the time.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That record
Box,
store.
yeah, that was cool. Fun stuff.
So, yeah, that's where I bought it. And one thing I thought was cool in the store was on the back wall, they would have like 5 rows of records stacked on top of each other. So you could see the whole album cover. And these were in order of where they were that week. So you'd have like
Oh,
the top
that's a
10
cool visual.
albums. Yeah. So all stacked there. And so I bought this prior to it being in that spot because it was pretty early on.
You are a trendsetter, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember bringing that album to school because someone wanted to borrow it, and I drew a pretty big crowd.
Oh, really?
I felt kind of cool. All these older upperclassmen in like 7th and 8th grade were coming to check out the record that I had. So I felt pretty cool.
That is cool. So when you got that thing home, you were just playing it nonstop?
Pretty much, because that was all I had. So
And the 45.
Yeah, but 45,
well,
which
it's
was
redundant.
already 2 of the songs. So so I listened to that. I think my sister had Foreigner's Double Vision and maybe like Little River Band album. So
Lonesome Loser.
yeah, I can't remember which one, but anyway, so I could listen to some of those, but otherwise it was mainly this record. My brother was buying tapes, so yeah.
He'd already moved on beyond records, or was he buying records?
He started with tapes.
Like
he didn't really
track or
No,
Okay.
cassette tapes. His car had an 8-track player in it, so he did have to get a new tape deck so he could play those in there. But yeah, so he was tapes. I was buying records.
8 tracks. I got to figure out how those things worked. I never really thought about that, but I do remember a friend's brother in his Chevy Nova or something like that we were driving, and he had an 8-track player, and all of a sudden, hey, song stopped mid-song.
Mid-song, yep.
Yeah.
It would kind of fade out, and then it'd fade back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that just nuts?
Yeah.
Way to ruin a song.
Really? I don't know the mechanics of how that works.
Yeah.
That'd be
I don't
wouldn't be a
remember
full
either.
episode, but it'd be kind of interesting to learn.
Because I got one 8-track for a birthday gift. I don't remember even one year, but it was I didn't even remember asking for it. I think it was more my mom just going, well, he might like this. And it was Andy Gibb, Shadow Dancing.
Nice.
And I'm like, thanks, Mom. I don't remember either.
That's what all the kids are listening to these days.
Yeah, I guess. And we had an 8-track player like in the house stereo system.
My parents had one of those.
But that was it. So I could listen to it in one place. That was it.
And then do you remember the adapter? So you could, like in your car, you could plug in an 8-track, and then it had a cassette player outside of that where you could put a tape player. So it was basically a converter.
Oh, okay.
So you can convert.
Okay.
So those people that
big old adapter.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So should we get into talking about some of these tracks on this album here?
Sure.
Hey, I've got a kind of an interesting little fact about the album that before we get into the tracks, just an overall. So in reference to what was going on at the time, I should have brought this up earlier, but the best album of 1981, according to Rolling Stone, was Tattoo You by the Stones.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a runner-up. Jay Geils' Freeze Frame was a runner-up, along with, get this, Wild Gift by X, East Side Story by Squeeze,
Okay.
Fio on the Bayou, Neville Brothers, Pirates, Ricky Lee Jones, Catherine Wheel, David Byrne. I mean,
This is the runners up.
This is a total Rolling Stone critics list, isn't it?
Wow.
Yikes.
Yeah.
But having said that, and critics like weird stuff. Great segue into Jay Geils Band, Freeze Frame, right?
And another thing I was going to mention when I had brought this record to school, my friend had a friend, Eric, and his older brother was going to borrow this, and he borrowed it, and when I got it back, it was warped.
The worst.
Oh man.
And it had a big hump in it.
Yeah.
And I look at it now, it's gone.
Oh wow.
Now, I haven't pulled this out of the sleeve
for those
probably
not watching the YouTube video that we don't have. Brian has the record in studio with us.
So,
and we're looking at it, it's completely flat. How
having
warped was it though?
It had, it was like
a inch heave.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
not an inch, but it was big. And so I was not real happy about that. I mean, I've got one record.
Yeah.
And now I've got a warped record.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Now, to be fair, there was one time I was playing football and I beat a guy and the guy got mad and he took me down. And Tim came to my defense. So all is forgiven for
there you go.
warping my record.
So how did you get that unwarped then?
I didn't do anything to it. I mean, like I said, I hadn't pulled this probably out of this sleeve for 30 plus years. So it's been squished between records for all that time, and maybe it just fixed it.
Wow.
So
Some unknown physical law that's going on here that we don't know about.
right.
Since you have that album out, can we talk about the cover briefly?
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
you sent us a video of what was the song with that? It's featured in like an animation.
Freeze frame.
Was it the freeze frame
It was
video?
the freeze frame
freeze frame
video.
video features some animation of the album cover where there's like Mr. Potato Head figure sitting behind a desk, presumably like a psychologist, psychiatrist or something.
Yep.
Some wicked looking wooden body with 3 eyes is laying down on a red couch.
Kind of Gumby-esque in a way.
It is Gumby-esque.
And then it's on this weird checkerboard pattern, and these 3 eyes are beaming or receiving or beaming stuff, I don't know, onto this frame, like a photo frame, because there's sides on it where the camera would grab the frame.
Good job, Dave. If I wasn't looking at the album, I totally picture what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when I brought this to school, of course, everybody's looking at this, and we are trying to figure out what the heck this means. We
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask our principal. We're going to give it to him and see what he thinks of it. And he's looking at it. He's like, I have no idea, guys. Sorry, I can't help you.
That's pretty sweet that you actually could ask your principal. He must have been a pretty cool dude.
He was cool.
Yeah.
Mr. Adams. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've searched the internet. I can't find anything.
It's very
That
like
talks about
surreal, psychedelic almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just somebody's like art project and like, this would make a really cool, you have to believe like some of that was based on the freeze frame video, or because they animated exactly what's on here. And a lot of this stuff looks really.
And if you look on the back of the album cover, if you've seen the video, they're throwing paint around.
Yeah. That looked
they're all in
fun.
white painter's clothes. And now on the back of the album, you have a picture of them with paint all over them.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, you could be right. This all kind of happened at the same time.
Yeah.
Looking at the liner notes here, there is a designer and illustrator listed. Never heard of him, so it doesn't matter who it is. But
We'll have to try to look later. But yeah, I was like, is there any meaning for this anywhere? And
yeah,
couldn't find anything.
I had one like kind of side note on the band at this time too that I forgot to bring up earlier. I saw that in '82, when they were frequently selling out arenas after this came out around the U.S., they had a month-long tour with U2 as their support act.
Yes.
What?
In March.
Yep.
Yeah.
in '82,
Yeah.
So it was October, the album.
The album by U2. Yeah.
War came out in '83.
Yeah, I think
Yeah?
so. I think you're
Okay.
right.
But I'm
Wow,
sure that's a common
amazing.
thing with, bands that are popular a little later.
So,
they always have to support some other, up and coming band.
Now, you were talking about the Rolling Stones
I thought
earlier.
that was kind of cool.
They opened up for the Rolling Stones on that tour, on the
The Geils did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Along with George Thorogood and Prince.
Oh, when he got booed off the stage.
Got booed off the stage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Prince got booed off the stage?
Yes,
Yes.
after like 2 or 3 songs,
Wow.
you're out of there. There was a lot of different people that opened up for the Rolling Stones on that tour. I know Van Halen did at one point. They did like 1 or 2 shows with them. So,
I mean, if you're wanting to open, I suppose that's a pretty good slot.
I mean, you've got instantly 70, 80,000 people.
except for Prince.
Except for Prince. Didn't work well.
But it kind of worked out well for him later. So,
and here's another thing you're talking about. Here's some of the bands that opened up for the Geils Band. And this is prior to the freeze frame.
Oh,
okay. So 70s.
Yeah. The Eagles, Billy Joel, ZZ Top, Yes, and the Allman Brothers.
Wow, that's a stellar list. That's impressive.
And then U2, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So some big bands were opening up for them.
Future bands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Future big bands.
That's pretty cool though.
Because Geils Band wasn't huge.
No, they just
So, that means these were even less huge.
they put a lot of time and effort in to just being a really great live blues band
Yep.
before they got to this point.
Yep.
And even I was reading something that I think is true listening to it, that they really kept the essence of the Geils Band, even though they kind of modernized and had a few songs that incorporated more synth and stuff. They didn't, and they even comment like, they didn't sell out, but they just, kept up with the times a little bit and modernized their sound for.
In their previous album, Love Stinks, was when they started using a little bit of those synthesizers. And Seth Justman, who wrote a lot of this music, he said the reason we didn't have more of that on the earlier ones is because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I read that same thing.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, they probably would have it would have happened a little earlier.
Yeah.
And it just didn't.
Only synthesizers weren't $8,000. Or
right.
whatever they were. I don't even know.
And they were just, they just didn't have the money. They were so in debt from touring and making the albums and just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You should say that they were so in debt. I read a comment too that this album, they were kind of hoping to get out of debt with their record label.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Whatever that means. But, did they have to pay for studio time and whatnot? And they weren't selling enough?
Probably.
Albums they recorded didn't sell enough. So
yeah,
felt like we owed it to the record label to give them something that will sell.
Yeah. But this was a new record label for them. I think
that's right.
This was their
just switched, right?
Third. I think it was their second or third album on EMI. So,
which doesn't mean they still didn't know the other record label.
That could be too.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe the other record label put up with them for a long time. That was Atlantic.
Yep.
And they put the time in. I mean, if you figure they did 6 or 7 albums and a couple live albums in there with Atlantic, and they just didn't quite get there. They just figured it was time to cut their losses and move on.
So was Love Stinks on Atlantic?
No, it was on EMI. Yeah.
So obviously the change paid off.
It did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I'm just going to lay out the tracks on side 1. We can talk about those, and then we can move on to side 2. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
Side 1, Freeze Frame, Rage in the Cage, Centerfold, Do You Remember When, and Insane Again. They start off with a bang here.
Yeah.
Freeze Frame.
Yeah.
The first thought I had actually of this is listening to this now. Does anybody of a certain age even know what that sound is of a shutter speed, shutter going off on a camera like that?
My phone makes that sound.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Maybe, maybe they think it's a phone. Yeah.
And can you think of another song right around that time that had that in the beginning of the song?
Girls on Film.
You got it.
Yeah.
Another funny thing, when I bought this album,
by Duran Duran, by the way.
By Duran Duran, yeah.
Throw that out there.
Drop the needle on it. Freeze Frame. Now, I thought they were announcing the title of the album. The album was called Freeze Frame. So that's what they do. So when the next album I bought, I dropped the needle on, I expected them to say whatever the name of the album was and then get into the songs.
They didn't say it. That's weird.
They didn't. Like, whoa, okay.
So the second album you bought, you were expecting what album was it?
It was, I don't know. I think it was Foreigner 4. So 4. And then
would have been actually really
Urgent or Nightlife or whatever that song was.
Yeah.
So Freeze Frame.
This is just oozing some bubblegum pop for me.
Yes.
It's just power pop to the max.
Yep.
So, I mean, you couldn't have started off the album any better from my point of view. I mean, it's just a fun song to just get into right away.
And are there horns and harmonica? There's a lot of harmonica. And I felt, and there's another track on this album that I think, and I'll say what that is later, had kind of a, and you maybe will argue with me on this, a little Springsteen influence. Up-tempo Springsteen is kind of what I heard in there, which is not all of it, but that's what it made me think of.
Yeah. I think I may know what you're talking about, but we'll see when we get there.
I mean, yeah, total pop. It was played to death, just like another song we'll talk about on this album. And it was a soundtrack of, I don't know exactly when Freeze Frame was released, the single.
But it was probably early 82.
Early 82?
Yeah.
I mean, these songs are, for me, not for you guys, emblematic of my high school experience because we listened to this album a lot.
Yep.
During my high school days.
So I thought the video was pretty cool too, with throwing the paint around and all that.
And that's interesting because to talk about videos, I read a comment, and I can't remember exactly which review it was, but they said they thought that maybe this album was really made with MTV in mind.
I agree with you. And if you think about it, MTV started in August of 81. This album was released just a couple months later.
Yep.
They probably had these videos done prior to the release. So MTV is brand spanking new.
Yep.
And if you look at a lot of early videos, they're pretty bad.
Yeah, they were.
Now, I don't think these were that bad. I thought they were
artistically they were pretty good.
You know, I thought they were done well.
Yeah, they had enough variety in there that you didn't get bored or go, okay, you can move on to the next shot of the video or whatever it is now. Yeah, it kept it moving pretty decent. I mean, you got to look at it through the lens of that time and not expect too much either.
Right. And I know later
for effects
on,
especially.
Later on, you know, bands could take 3, 4, 5 days to do a video shoot. And I think these early ones, you know, they probably just did it in a day.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't that big of a deal. And I think for artists, as they got moving on, especially older artists that were coming into the 80s, just hated the video aspect of it. And they seem to have embraced it for a band that had been around at that time for 10 years.
Yep, absolutely.
To jump into that and then be probably a pretty big influence on other videos.
The freeze frame one was pretty fun, actually. I don't recall seeing that. I probably did at some point, you know, in my youth, but it had been quite a while. And it was just a fun, I mean, it kept things moving along, the whole paint thing, and then they incorporated that album cover animation stuff in there. Yep. So it was pretty cool, I thought.
This song, did you say it, Dave? Ear candy? I mean... all of a sudden,
I said it was oozing bubblegum pop.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So now it is completely stuck in my head after 2 minutes of talking about this. You just start humming along.
It's super hooky.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to get stuck in your head if you hear just a couple bars.
Yep. I also, at one point when my kids were younger, I made them a mixed CD.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my idea was I want them to be familiar with songs that you're going to hear at weddings. You're going to hear at sporting events and everything.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of them that I put on there because I know this one pops up a lot when there's, you know, they're reviewing a play or something. And a lot of times you'll hear this playing in the background.
And now that they've heard it.
And now they know.
Hey, Dad, I remember hearing this on the CD you gave me.
That's right.
Yeah. You're doing your good due diligence as a dad.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, raising them right.
We applaud.
Yes. Want to move into Rage in the Cage?
Sure.
I think Freeze Frame, everybody's heard Freeze Frame. Rage in the Cage may not be quite as popular.
So this was the B-side to the Centerfold single.
Okay. I had a note on here that right away it sounded like a little bit like Turning Japanese by the Vapors. Like a little oriental feel. In the beginning
about the
of
same time too,
and that's the harmonica again.
Yeah.
And it's a really unique sounding harmonica.
Yeah.
Like I said before, he does harmonica proud.
Who does?
Magic Dick.
Yes, Magic Dick.
Yes. Brian and I were talking about that a little bit before we got recording and how awesome that guy is.
He is. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I actually had a hard time distinguishing, like, is it a synthesizer? Because he's playing so fast. I'm thinking like Blues Traveler fast.
Right.
John Popper. And I'm like, man, this guy is just ripping it.
Yeah. Okay. I will admit, before doing research on this, I thought it was a synthesizer.
Yeah.
I should have known better because, you know, they're a blues-based band from the 70s.
I felt the same way.
I never even thought of it until I started looking a little more deeply into the album.
And we were thinking too, can you think of another band that, you know, besides Blues Traveler, who pretty much has harmonica in every song. I mean, there's songs that will feature harmonica and this and that, but
Or folk music like Dylan or
Folk
something,
music,
but that's a totally different.
He doesn't do it every
use.
song though either.
right.
No.
But this is, I mean, he's part of the band.
Yeah.
And you know what? We need some harmonica in this song.
It's a prominent
Need more
instrument. Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
So yeah, it stands out.
Yeah.
It's real hooky too, you know, and in kind of the same way as Freeze Frame, which is a consistent theme on this album, which probably was intentional the way they crafted these to become
Yeah.
top 40, you know, stick in your head all day long sort of tunes.
I was telling Brian, listening through this album, I was really only familiar with Freeze Frame and Centerfold. So listening to it a few times, I know a song is got a good hook now. And I just woke up this morning, as a matter of fact. I hadn't listened to this particular song, but Rage in the Cage popped in my head the first thing when I got out of bed. Which is
pretty good.
really
You've been
unusual.
doing a little too much research.
Apparently, yeah. But I didn't even listen. That wasn't the last song I listened
Yeah.
to like that evening at all.
Oh.
So I didn't even listen to that. I don't think I even listened to that song at all yesterday. But for some reason, that little harmonica kick
Yeah.
just popped in my head.
Yeah. Well,
So
And it's a good hook.
when in my music class in grade school, I'm trying to think of what grade I was in, 5th grade maybe. We could bring in records and the teacher would play some songs, and so I brought this song in and had this song played for the class.
Yeah.
And when the song was done, the teacher goes, "This is Miss Berg. That was interesting."
She's probably used to a little
Rage
more.
in the Cage, huh?
What does that
Okay.
mean? We're not going to analyze that class. Moving on.
I don't want to get too off topic, but I've got a similar story like that. We, at the grade school I attended, it was a Lutheran grade school that had a junior choir, we were called.
Mm-hmm.
So this was 7th and 8th grade. And 7th and 8th grade boys don't want to be in junior choir.
No.
It's
No.
probably not the highlight of the day or the year for that matter.
Right.
Or their
Anyway,
youth.
the junior choir director humored us and allowed us to bring some music in to listen to that maybe the junior choir could sing. I think it was just to keep us interested. So I thought, okay, what could I bring in? Brought in Kansas Dust in the Wind. That would be a good thing for a choir to sing. And she played along so well. I can vividly see her just kind of, getting into it. And, well, that was really nice. But we're never going to sing that.
Ready to move on?
Moving on.
Centerfold. Does this have one of the most memorable hooks ever?
Yeah, and that's why when I'm listening to ham radio and this song's on, I was like,
Yeah.
I got to have that song.
Yeah.
It's a really cool song.
You and a few million other people probably.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
It was definitely written for radio.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, pop all the way.
Yep.
This song for me, totally written for radio, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Pure pop music, catchy, repetitive, the na-nas. It's got everything that a radio hit is made of. Super catchy. But for me, to have staying power for a song, it has to hit me emotionally. And this one, Centerfold, nope, doesn't really hit me emotionally at all. But
Pretty shallow.
yeah, very much so. Including the video, by the way. I think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
didn't you talk about the video the other day?
Yeah, I remember watching that and my mom walking in the room and saying, "They're not wearing very many clothes, are they?"
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mom.
Guess not.
We'll turn this
Turn
off
in
for
the
now.
channel.
Yeah. It was on MTV at the time.
On MTV, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably about every hour for that.
And this song was in a lot of movies and TV shows, and it's popped up in a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Grown Ups, King of Queens, The Office.
Really?
Yeah.
The Office.
My Name is Earl. Goldbergs. Yeah, it's popped up in a lot of TV shows.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a
Retro.
lot of yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the whole Rubik's Cube at the start of the show. This is where these two collide for me. I can distinctly remember sitting on my lower bunk bed, which I think was my brother's bed, playing Rubik's Cube, trying madly to solve the thing, but hearing Centerfold on the radio.
Oh, funny.
And I don't think it was probably the first time, but
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this song, cranking it up.
Yeah.
So that's the big memory for me from this album was that song in particular, and going, oh, I have a moment in time I can actually remember listening to this song.
That's cool stuff.
Yeah.
And you can pinpoint that.
That
through
and
a song.
every time I went roller skating. I think
yeah,
around this
that
time too. This was just like the popular song to
Right.
hear. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get out there.
And I also loved in the video where he had his snare drum full of milk.
That was
Yes, I liked that.
that was a little unexpected too.
Yeah.
But artistic.
Yes,
Yes.
very artistic.
Yes.
And I don't know if he just has that sense of humor, but in the Love Stinks video, he's playing drums and his hands are fish, and he's playing with his fists.
They
or
just
his
like the
hands
surreal
that. So,
stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's like, how can we be
Were they-
weird?
were
I
they-
know.
Were they little fish like anchovies?
No, they weren't. I know where you're going there. No anchovies, please.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. That was not this album though, was it?
No, that was the Love Stinks.
I did hear
album.
that in that song, and I went, "What is going
I know.
on?
This
This is like a performance art
yeah.
song."
Really? Okay. Interesting you should say that, because I feel like some of this album and the videos
Yeah.
are performance art.
Yeah.
And we'll get to one of those tunes that
And I know Peter Wolf was an artist, or he was anticipating being an artist before he became a singer. So
Oh well.
Can we talk about Peter Wolf a little bit?
No.
Sure. No,
Go. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Go
He's
ahead.
a great front man.
Yeah.
he is.
He's got the moves,
Yeah.
got the swagger.
He was
He's-
known for rapping. He had a lot of raps during his while he's talking.
No
Not
kidding.
rapping, scratching,
Oh.
but
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
just
Yep.
the way he talked. He was a DJ for a while before, so that's where he got his quick, slick talk, fast, kind of thing
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
So
He's
No,
got
I-
a unique kind of cadence like that, but he's also got one of those cool, unique, distinctive voices that you can pick out too. It's not just and granted, most bands have a pretty unique voice fronting the band. So, but yeah, his is very distinguishable.
Yeah. And I think his moves, although not completely unique, they were, if I were to see him on stage even today, because I think he still does perform, at least I was reading they reunited in like 18 or 19, something like
Okay.
that. I saw a video with him performing with the Black Crowes about 2 years ago, doing a Jay Geils tune, and I should remember the name of it, but I don't right now. And the guy's like 75 years old or something like that, and still had the moves and
Yeah.
the mouth.
Yep.
It was the rapping.
Yep. The
sort of
DJ.
talk. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's a great front man.
yeah.
So
I would have one more note on here. The young 10-year-old me listening to this thought it was pretty risque. A little naughty. Like, should I be listening to this?
Yeah. And I think when I bought it, I didn't quite know that much. So I was probably caught off a little guard.
Yeah.
well, I'll tell you guys, I was the
you were
15-year-old.
older,
and
yes.
felt the same way.
You knew.
Yep.
I at least remember knowing what a centerfold was.
Right.
Not that I had maybe even seen one, but,
Yeah.
kids talk on the playground.
Yes. Yes.
Let's move on to Do You Remember When for a very short talk, I think.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating. I don't know.
Brian, this is your album. You go first.
If I'm going to think of a filler song in the album, maybe this was it. It didn't do a whole lot. So that's really all I got.
This song, the bridge, I'm listening thinking, what does this sound like? It's kind of got this dreamy 70s sort of disco feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds, when you get to the bridge, like disco.
Yeah.
And must have been intentional. Disco was it was on its way out, but
Right.
still around. And, they were trying to sell albums. Maybe they said, let's see if this...
A lot of early 80s stuff still had elements of disco in them.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, it wasn't really too out of place.
It
transition time.
but out of place for this band.
Yeah, maybe.
I had to know this. It sounded like it didn't belong on the album almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I had the same note about disco. Because I felt that right away too.
Mm-hmm.
Like a disco ballad hybrid going on.
Yeah.
But it just sounded like it maybe didn't belong on the album.
I agree.
Me.
Yeah.
I pictured John Travolta in a white disco suit with the bell bottoms and kind of but it's a very breezy, poppy feel to that bridge.
Right.
Around the same time, I actually had a little note because for me, it sounded like maybe one of the missing songs from the movie Caddyshack. Like it could easily be thrown into that movie and fit somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to the songs that are in that movie, it is right in line with those.
Interesting.
From my perspective, anyway. I'm more the movie buff than you guys. But
you are. The only song I remember from Caddyshack is "Any Way You Want It." I think.
Yeah.
No, I'm all right. Come on.
I'm all right too. Yeah. I just remember the big boombox on Rodney Dangerfield's.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's out there and Journey's cranking, and I love Journey.
Yep.
So what? So let's dance. All right, let's move on to Insane Again.
And it is.
Yes.
This is probably one of my favorite songs on the album.
Oh wow.
I really liked it. They really went crazy with the synthesizers and everything, and just lots of ear candy. Fun to throw the headphones on, and stereo effects are in full force here.
I noted it sounded to me like they were channeling the Police a little bit.
It could be.
And even a little Prince. I mean, it's like the rest of the album, not all of the rest of the album, but parts of the rest of the album, kind of experimental.
Mm-hmm. I thought is like, what sound effect can we throw into this song? And they were just like, let's do this. I got this sound. Oh, cool. Let's do that. Let's do this. And just,
It's not top 40 at all.
Not at all.
I think they knew they had their top 40 hits. So let's do something a little fun.
And didn't Dave, you think it was in a movie somewhere?
No, I actually had a note that it sounds like it could be in a John Hughes movie. It could be right in.
That's what it was.
I always do the movie thing because I watch a lot of movies, but it could be in 16 Candles because I've been listening to that soundtrack quite recently, and I went, this could just be slide right in there,
right?
Or at least some movie where there's a montage of people running or dancing or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sounded like it just fit into that genre for me.
I don't have any more to add.
Did you like the song, Lance?
I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry.
Really? I actually kind of like this one.
My favorite song on the album is coming up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to side two. Side two songs: Flamethrower, River Blindness, Angel in Blue, and Piss on the Wall.
P dash. We are a PG show, Dave.
I am sorry. No, I'm not, because it's the name of the song.
I thought it had a super catchy hook, just like the rest of the album. I thought maybe a little more similar to some of their older stuff. It was a little blues infused, but it also had this really cool new wave feel as well.
I was going to say the Cars.
Yeah.
That and even Insane Again. I was getting a lot of that feeling, both from the same area in Boston. I just thought, and even some of the lyrics, you think of, what was some of the things, like air conditioned lemonade. I mean, to me, that sounds like your nuclear boots and your drip dry gloves from the Cars, just kind of weird phrasing like that. And I wonder, and then, just the sound with all the synthesizers. I was wondering if there was a little Cars influence when they kind of made this transition more to this new wavy sound, and that played a lot into it.
I would agree. And it seems like, as we were talking about before with the Police, they were trying to channel different genres of music with this album. And only they know why, but again, they were trying to put together an album that was going to sell, and that sound was hot at the time.
Right.
And continued to be. New wave, was big for probably 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So I liked it. It was a great song. Not my favorite yet, but
and this one was number 12 on the dance charts.
Number
This song,
12.
number 12, and number 25 on the Black singles charts.
interesting. Yeah, I can see why it's a dance chart hit, and not disco though.
Not disco.
So that's a good sign. We're moving away from the disco.
right.
Your favorite song, Dave? Was it your favorite?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I don't know that I could really pick out a favorite. I mean,
Well, you got to have a favorite on the album.
it's probably Freeze Frame, honestly.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We weren't going to let you out of here without
No,
picking a
I mean,
favorite.
if I had to pick one, it'd be Freeze Frame. Well, these other songs started growing on me a little bit more, having listened to the full album, for the review here. And so I'm like, oh, you know what? Actually, because I don't like picking the song that everybody else knows all the time
Right.
either.
Yeah, right.
But in this case, I gotta go with Freeze Frame.
Understandable.
Yeah. Do you guys have much to say about River Blindness?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea what this is. What kind of music is River Blindness? It's like experimental jazz.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was a wild song. I'm not saying I like it, but it was interesting. Really interesting. I probably wouldn't put the needle down on that first if I'm going to listen to the album. But in fact, I owned this album back in the day, and I will admit, it was probably more of the put on freeze frame, centerfold, listen to the pop hits. Yep, it was not a listen all the way through album, so it was very fun to spend some time actually listening to the entire album. And this song, River Blindness, just blew me away.
It's kind of dreamy in it. You have these breakdowns of the bass, little bass solo there in the middle. You got some harmonica solo in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The end, the guitar going out with the song was pretty wild.
Yeah, I had a note that it kind of sounded, it reminded me somehow of Jimmy Page's solo in Song Remains the Same.
Interesting.
Like live, it's just kind of like crazy distortion.
Can't you see him like grabbing the mic stand and rubbing it on the strings and doing all sorts of weird stuff at the end.
Wow, and I'm going to go back and listen.
Yeah.
If you listen to these parts, they each kind of got to showcase, some of their stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the song, the Dire Straits song, Right Across the River.
I am not.
Nope.
If you go back and listen to that, a little similar.
Really?
I'm going to trust you on that
a little
one.
bit. Well, I would go back and listen to it. Now you might listen and go like, nah, I don't know. But the same kind of, what kind of song is this? How does it fit in? To me, it's kind of the dreamy river song. Mm-hmm. And the way the drums come in with, sounds like a keyboard drum sound.
Yeah.
Little thing going. They both have that kind of song into it. And so go back and listen to that.
Angel in Blue. Anything on that one?
My favorite song on the album.
It is.
Yeah, I really like
this. Was the third single.
Yep.
The third single.
I thought you were going to
40.
say the last song, Lance.
Yep.
Hit number 40.
Hit number 40, and that was it.
No, it's a very, earlier I said an album or a song has to be emotional for me to stick with me. This one is emotional in a way. I thought it sounded a bit like, I keep talking about Springsteen. I said there's a couple that I thought were Springsteen influenced. This could have been a Springsteen song in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very easy, relaxed, blues-based, sort of top 40. Maybe that's why it didn't make it past.
It was interesting that I had no idea this was even a 45 or a single released. I have the single, but I bought this years later. I found it like, wow, I didn't even know this was a song. I didn't know they had a video for the song because I was watching MTV all the time. I don't remember seeing that. And I was familiar with this album. So I would have been like, oh yeah, great. Didn't even remember it. So it didn't make an impact.
So according to the video, is this song about Marilyn Monroe?
Well,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
you know what I
Still-
kind of thought? I think it's the continuation of Centerfold.
the sad story of
The sad
Centerfold.
story of
Oh,
the
yeah.
Centerfold.
I would agree with
This
you,
was
Brian.
her life there.
Yep. I totally 100%. And for that reason, it's a bit emotional. You kind of feel sorry for the protagonist
Yep.
story, and it's a song for me that I would have passed over 30 years ago or whenever this
Right.
came out because
Yeah.
it wasn't up tempo or didn't feature guitars in a cool
Right,
way
yeah.
back then.
And you're
but
old now.
I'm old now, and it's a song that I think has some staying power.
It's got some emotion to it.
Yeah.
If you were looking for emotion.
Yep.
Couple background singers in this. Sissy Houston, who I was not familiar with, who has done background singing for Aretha Franklin, Elvis, Dionne Warwick,
Wow.
and Luther Vandross.
Oh,
Major
wow.
creds.
So, and they both had done some background on previous albums too for the Geils Band.
Interesting. Well, I liked it. Good tune.
Yep.
In fact, I'll probably go back and listen to that. Not every day or week, but
Yeah.
but it'll be on. If I put
Yeah.
together a playlist, I'd throw it on there.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
Put it on your mixtape.
I'm totally
But-
with you on though. Appreciate it more now than
Yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah. Different taste.
Yep,
Probably now too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last song on the album, gentlemen. P asterisk. Piss on the Wall.
It's a good
All right.
song. You know what? I didn't remember that song from Days Gone By.
I remember that because as a kid, I mean, that's just the
Like,
funniest
what
thing in
is
the
this?
world.
Yeah.
What is he talking about?
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Total Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. Before Beavis and Butthead, yeah.
On the wall.
I had down like this almost feels like a surf song.
Oh, yeah.
Had that vibe for
That
me. at
vibe,
least.
yeah.
Yeah.
And catchy. I mean, is
Yeah.
that catchy as like a lot of these other songs?
So this wasn't released as a single?
No. This was to me, this was song thrown on the end of the album.
Yeah.
And if it didn't have that chorus, I mean, they probably could have done a lot more with that song.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I'm sure the
Lyrically.
record company said, we're not going to try to
We can't.
release something called Piss on the Wall,
Right.
but it is super catchy.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I went back. Well, I like that song.
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to give it a listen at first because I thought, what a dumb name. for a
That
song.
was the one, when my friends came over, oh, you got to hear this song.
See, we are Beavis and Butthead.
we are.
Keep it low though, because mom's listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, it's time to give our personal rating of this album from 0 to 10, with 10 being leave it on repeat because I could listen to this all day. Would you drop the needle on this album again? We'll start with Lance.
Brian, I don't want to disappoint you because
No,
I know
that's
this is
fine.
your album, but
Yeah.
I'd probably give it about a 5. There are songs on there that I would, like I said, put in a playlist. But in general, there's not enough staying power. I don't think it holds up like a few other albums of theirs even. I like Love Stinks. I remember owning that. Thought that was a
Mhm.
better album than this. I thought they changed their style. Even though you'll read they claim they didn't change their style. It was pretty
It was huge.
it was pretty experimental.
Yep.
I thought. But yep, there are a handful of songs that I would go back to. So I'll give it a 5.
Brian, how about you?
I'm going to give it an 8. And probably just because it was my first album and I listened to it and I know it backwards and forwards. And I listened to this one, not like Lance with Boston every week, but I will listen to this, 2 or 3 times a year.
Good. Yeah.
A realistic 2 or 3 times a year.
Very realistic.
I'm right kind of in the middle of you guys. I'm a 6 for all kind of the same reasons. There's the familiar songs we've all heard. But I think I started lower in my brain, and as I started going through the songs, this isn't as bad as I thought it might be with unknown songs listening through it for the first time.
Right.
Because they grow on you a little bit, and you're like, oh, you know what? This is actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a solid 6.
And this album got me into other Geils Band albums.
Some of the earlier stuff.
Right.
Good.
So this was, I bought the Showtime, which is a live album that came out after this, about a year after. And then there was only one song on there from this album. So the other 8-9 songs were from different albums. Mm-hmm. And so that got me to go look for those albums and start listening to those.
So the album that followed this was a live album, or did they have another studio album?
They had another studio album, but Peter Wolf had left the band.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
All right.
I read they started to work with Peter Wolf, and the relationship between Justman and Wolf kind of deteriorated. They didn't have the chemistry. And
Well, I think because Justman wrote most of the Freeze Frame album, and maybe Peter Wolf, I mean, he's co-writer on some of the songs, but maybe he felt like, I'm getting pushed out a little bit. And at the same time, Justman thought, hey, we can make another album. I'll sing on it. I'm writing the songs anyway.
they didn't know what a great front man they had in
Right.
Peter Wolf.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think had they tried a little harder, there could have been another hit album.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for Remember When, a segment where I ask Brian and Lance their thoughts about something we grew up with but may no longer be around today.
I thought you were talking about the song that we didn't talk about, but that was Do You Remember When? Anyway, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
That's the best one
Yes,
tonight.
yes, applause. We need like a little prize for that or something. All right, so today's item for discussion, scratch and sniff stickers.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what these are, it's basically a regular sticker that might have like a image of like grapes or something on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a texture that when you scratch it, you can sniff it and it smells exactly like the image. So they had ones for like grapes. Pizza,
Yes.
orange. Discuss.
I had a book as a very young child. I would say maybe I was 5, and I don't even remember what it was, but I remember there was bears in this book, and it was a Christmas themed book, and there being scratch and sniff candy canes in there. There was a mother bear baking a pie, so there was a pie. There was the Christmas tree, so you had an evergreen smell.
That's right. I remember the pine. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm remembering. I can't remember the name of the book though. I can picture it.
Yeah.
But
You said stickers, right, Dave?
Stickers, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
think
they incorporated it into other medium like that, though, into little parts
I
of books
remember
and
them
stuff.
more in books.
I'm not saying Brian's lying about his book. I believe you.
Well, maybe it is.
But I do remember stickers too. But I don't remember the pleasant smells or aromas. I remember stuff like rotten eggs.
Oh.
Um,
They probably had those too.
I think
I don't remember
you could,
too many of the unpleasant ones, but go ahead.
I think you buy them in like a pack.
Yep.
And there was some really nasty stuff.
Pizza smelled nasty, actually. I remember that
I
one
bet it did.
specifically.
Yeah.
It did not smell good.
It was what they call it.
You couldn't nail a pizza smell, I don't think.
Not a good
Just-
one.
All right, guys.
Oh,
The sweet smells of Christmas.
Hey.
oh,
they
you
found
pulled
it.
up the book on his phone. Sweet. Wow. Okay, a gingerbread even, huh?
Gingerbread, yeah. So yeah.
I don't think I ever saw any books that had that in there.
Yeah.
I would just the stickers.
I remember a few of the stickers. The smell was so cool that you'd scratch the thing till the smell was gone. It's like, come on, you gotta work.
That's
Yeah.
what this book was. You're starting to wear through the pages.
Yep. But I totally remember them, and I remember them being in the packages just like baseball cards. Or here's another one that we can maybe talk about later, but you ever remember Wacky Packs?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are fun too.
Yes, they were.
So, yep, totally remember them. I just remember foul smells for some reason.
Maybe this is kind of what happened before the Harry Potter jelly bean thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, where you get some nasty flavors.
Yeah.
It's a gamble, right?
Yeah.
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 I still have one that works, a scratch and sniff sticker.
Yeah.
Because I have it in my scrapbook from, I think it's like 4th or 5th grade, from doing some multiplication tables verbally.
Ooh.
And there's a grape one on there that still works.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
However many years later. So,
Like 100.
yeah. Wow. I'm not that old, Lance.
Well,
You're
didn't
halfway there.
you mentioned, did you say what kind of candy with the Harry Potter you were talking about?
Jelly beans.
Jelly beans, yeah. Was it Jelly Belly that made some really
Yes.
nasty, like
Yes.
puke?
Puke and yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go to like there's a Jelly Belly factory in around Kenosha, I think, Wisconsin, that we've been to a few times. I think it's around
Interesting
Kenosha.
you should mention that,
Yeah.
Dave.
Have you been there?
I drove by, and it's no longer Jelly Belly because they got bought out by Haribo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's this huge Haribo sign because it's right on the interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
And we were on our way to Chicago recently, and I thought, isn't that where Jelly Belly was? But no, it's Haribo. And Haribo is a European, is it German maybe? They make gummy bears.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
They make good gummy bears.
They do, yeah.
But back to the Jelly Belly factory, you could go take a tour, which took like 5 minutes. They had a train on the inside of the warehouse. And,
Yeah.
and they have the little store there where you could buy belly flops, which are like their ones that got stuck together for really cheap.
Right.
But you could also get samples. And if you were daring enough, you could get samples of the really nasty stuff from Harry Potter, like grass,
No,
pencil
not doing it.
shavings, vomit, toothpaste, some nasty stuff.
I went to the jelly bean factory in California. I don't remember what city, but they had one out there.
Yeah.
I remember doing the tour and all that. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, I think it's time to wrap up this episode, gentlemen.
Hey, everyone, or two of you that might be listening to this podcast. Thanks again for checking out our work, our podcast. We're having a lot of fun with this. Our next episode is going to be perhaps maybe a little less opinionated because we'll be talking about Dave's first album, the self-titled debut by a little-known group called Van Halen.
Oh, yeah. I know those guys.
And if you missed our first episode, we discussed at length my first album, the debut album by Boston. So if you have the time, go back and check it out if you haven't heard it yet.
And if you have a chance, leave us a review of the show on your favorite podcast listening app. Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. Most of us can take it. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at When Records Ruled. Check out our Spotify playlist where you can find all the albums we've discussed on the podcast. And remember, we're not professional music critics. We're just three guys who like talking music.
That's right. Any final comments before we close it out, gentlemen?
Which one of us can't take it? Who's the wimp?
We'll find out next episode.
Comment.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, drop that needle and keep those records spinning.